How are you folks? On this windy... Did that get your attention? That's the Tombstone way of getting your attention. We don't use cap guns, folks. The guns we use are real guns. So we'd ask you to stay in your seats. I want to welcome you to Tombstone. We're going to give you a brief history of the town Too Tough to Die. Feels good to be out of the wind, doesn't it? Anyway, folks, what do you think would cause men to travel hundreds and hundreds of miles to come to a place like this? Gold. Well, in this case, silver. Now, there was gold in Tombstone, not a lot of it, mostly silver. But let me show you what silver actually looks like. Doesn't look like much, does it? Not like gold. But anyway, in 1876, a man named Ed Shefflin would come to this area. He would come with the cavalry. About 17 miles south is Fort Huachuca. Now, you got to understand, during those times, we were in the middle of the Apache Indian Wars. Now, Geronimo would escape the reservation in northern Arizona and come back to these mountains here, which are called the Dragoon Mountains. And when you go outside the doors, you look, maybe you've seen them, they're very rocky. Well, that's where the Indian leader Cochise lived. Now, Cochise was favorable to white men to a certain extent, but the cavalry, well, double-crossed him. Well, after his death, his son, Pazzo, would take what was left of the Chiricahua Apache to northern Arizona. Well, there was one leader, Geronimo, who was a medicine man, incidentally, and not a chief, that decided that he didn't want to be on the reservation. So he took a handful of braves and came back to this part of Arizona. Well, let's talk about Ed Shefflin now. Now, Ed Shefflin came in with the cavalry as an Indian scout. Fort Huachuca was, like I said, 17 miles. That was the home of the 6th and the 10th Cavalry. Maybe you've heard of the Buffalo Soldiers. Well, Ed would come into this area, which then was called Goose Flat. There was nothing here, just desert. The only problem was that Ed couldn't stay more than one day, and he couldn't even have a fire because of fear that Geronimo would catch him. And believe you, he didn't want to get caught by the Apaches. So anyway, Ed would go back to Fort Huachuca with some rocks. Well, the cavalry would tell him, Ed, the only tombstone, the only pile of rocks you're ever going to find is your own tombstone. Well, guess what he named his first mine? Guess we can figure that out, can't we? Well, basically, these rocks that Ed found, he found a vein of silver, which essayed at over $10,000 per ton. Now, if you figure that out at today's prices, we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, in the millions. Well, by 1879, guess what they named the city? Tombstone. And that was kind of a joke. But here we are today, the town Too Tough to Die. Now, by the end of 1879, a few fellows would come to Tombstone. I think you've heard of them, the Earps. It would be James, Virgil, and Wyatt that would come here first. Now, a lot of people think they came here. Well, they did come here for this, obviously. But they also came here because they were stagecoach operators, and that's what they wanted to start a stagecoach business. But now there's over 5,000 people in this area. So, consequently, there was a lot of competition. Well, so what do? Well, in 1880, Sheriff White, who was the first sheriff of Tombstone, would be killed by Curly Bill Brocious right behind the Birdcage Theater. Well, they would elect Virgil Earp to be the new city marshal. And as for Wyatt, well, he would take a quarter interest in the Oriental Saloon on the corner of 5th and Allen. Well, that brings us to our first story. Luke Short, the Undertaker's friend. At the bar there is Luke Short. Now, Luke Short was a very dapper gentleman. He dressed very well. He wasn't very big, but he was very fast with that gun. And in about 1880, Wyatt would ask him to come from Leadville, Colorado for his gambling skills, but more so for his gun skills. Seated at the table there is Charlie Storms. Well, Charlie Storms has been up playing poker all night. He's tired. He's lost quite a bit of money to Luke there. So, but the problem is with him, he doesn't have what you'd say, a real heavy gunfight reputation, but he is, in 1876, said to be in the No. 10 Saloon in Deadwood, South Dakota, when Wild Bill Hickok is killed by Jack McCall. Now, if you know anything about Wild Bill, he had 2 Navy 51 Colts that he carried, black powder pistols. One will hit the ground, history tells us, and that man will take one as a souvenir. Well, let's see what happens when that man, tired and angry and worn out, and that man, well, one of the fastest guns that ever lived, come together. The year is 1880, folks. We're on the corner of 5th and Allen in the Oriental Saloon.
All right, Scott.
How are you?
What happened?
She's a looker, isn't she?
Oh, boy. Has voice like an angel. Oh, I tell you.
Hey, Short, why don't you go back over here and we'll go back some more money?
Oh, he never gives up, does he?
No, apparently not.
Excuse me, Bat. Fool his money. Charlie, never know when to quit.
I tell you what, boys, you mind if I join you?
Not at all, Bat. Just bring some money with you.
Yeah. Okay. I got 100. How's that? Will that work?
You need more than 100 playing with a man like him.
Oh, go on.
What's wrong with him?
I've been on a little losing streak. Dying like a little girl all day.
Well, I'm gonna change your... Don't touch me.
Oh.
Nervy, eh?
Sir?
Well, Charlie, how many cars do you need?
I need 3.
Yeah. Back.
2.
You ever stands. Well, that's for you, Charlie.
I know what to
Yeah.
play. I know what to play.
Then put your money in there. You can call.
Very sentencing.
Needs more juices.
Well, don't be too there, gentlemen.
You owe yourself cards from the bottom of the deck again?
Now look, you got something you want to get off your chest, I suggest you do. Right now.
Great!
Don't
Sit
get
down.
Charlie.
Put it away. There's enough holes in the saloon and I don't want any meat. Put it away.
Boys gotta learn some manners.
God, can't we just play some cards? Not killing each other?
Oh, some people deserve killing.
You know something? You were probably one of the fastest men I've ever seen with a gun, but you were one of the slowest dealers I've ever played poker with.
I'm not slow and meticulous, Bat.
I'll stick to faro.
What are you grinning about, Charlie?
I only got one.
One it is. I know it's a bluff.
I don't think so.
Okay, Charlie. Let's see what you're so proud of.
See? Told you.
I don't buy it. You can call.
3 aces.
Whoa!
Well, 3 aces may be a pretty strong hand, but it don't beat 4 8s.
Whoa!
Oh, hell, how many hands is that now?
7.
Take it outside. Outside. That man will kill you. Outside. Sober up.
Well, back.
Scary around here.
We also need to find himself another profession. This one doesn't seem to be working for him.
Sure!
Hey, you picked the damnedest friends.
This rate I'm not going to have any. Folks, history tells us that Bat Masterson took Charlie here to his room. Go to sleep it off before he got killed. The one thing that Charlie didn't realize is that Luke Short there, in his lifetime, will kill over 14 men. Well, he killed 3. But that man there was definitely the fastest man that ever lived. In fact, Wyatt Earp, Bat Masterson, and the rest of them would contest to that. You can find him in Boot Hill. Now as for him, he'll live till 1893. He'll actually die of a disease called dropsy, commonly known today as heart disease, in his sleep. And that will be the end of Charlie Storms. Consequently, our next show, folks, takes us to the very same saloon 2 years later. I want you to notice over here, you've probably been looking at this. These 2 men